Ready?
Yeah. Hi you guys!
Hi,
It's Aline
and Michelle.
and we're here today with another little chatty video this Sunday morning or whenever you're watching this. It could be, a Tuesday at night, and if so, I hope you're having a great
I hope
Tuesday
you're having
night.
the best Tuesday night. So if you're new here, we are two sisters and roommates living and working in New York City. I, for one, am a social media marketer by day, YouTuber slash doodler by night. So overall, just a creative gal living in the Big Apple and trying to make a life
That's amazing.
in this concrete jungle.
Our dreams are made up. Speaking of dreams, hi, my name's Aline, and I am the hashtag little sister, and I am a barista part-time, but also a part-time writer of musings about dragons and lesbians. I'm also a stand-up comedian in New York City, and love to get theatrical from time to time.
We've got our coffee, and we're going to have a little coffee chat with you. And today we have a pretty fun topic, I would say. So grab a cup of something cozy yourself.
This one is for all these small town folks out there who've ever left for a big city or just big city dreaming. So cheers to that, Michelle.
Cheers to that.
We basically came up with three
Prompts.
prompts for discussion on our end, but feel free to answer them yourself in the comments. We're going to talk about what drew us to New York right up front, which I think is a kind of a fun question.
Right. We're both originally from Chile, but we spent a big hunk of time.
Like 12 years in Montana.
So we do tend to get the question, being from Montana, like, why New York? What drew you to the city?
What was enticing to us?
What was the pull?
Yeah. Right up front, I was going through a big theater phase when the idea of New York came to mind. I was on a high school senior trip and I came to New York and was absolutely in love, watched so many Broadway performances, and I was just like, oh my god, I want to do that. But it was that first time that I had ever been anywhere big in a really, really long time, especially like in the United States, like somewhere that I could pretty feasibly move. Yeah, at 18 I was just like, I think I might want to pursue acting, and I think I might want to pursue New York. And although like the acting thing is a little bit on the back burner right now, I'm not sure if that's still an authentic dream to who I am currently. New York has stuck for sure. The initial draw, I think that it was just like, oh, I kind of want big things for myself. Maybe I could do those big things here.
No, similarly to Aline, what called me to New York was originally my career aspirations. I was very highly influenced by The Devil Wears Prada. I believe I watched that film when I was 11 years old for the first time and was absolutely captivated.
Changed your world.
Really just like rocked my socks off, to be quite honest. Ever since then, I was really drawn to the fashion industry and super passionate about personal style, and that kind of translated into what I was thinking I wanted to do with my life. I studied marketing in college and originally really wanted to work in the fashion industry, LOL. So that's originally what drew me to New York. We came for spring break, the spring break before I was supposed to move to the city, and I had never been there before.
Which is crazy. It was the fact that I came back from my senior trip and was just like, hey, I could see myself living in New York, and you were just like, oh, what was that?
Originally, Aline would constantly talk shit about New York and how she could never live there and how it seemed gross and scary. We're so close that I didn't want to live in the one place that you didn't want to live, so it's not like it was a huge dream. It was just something that I always kind of wanted to try. But then when we visited for spring break, I fell in love with the city. It was so much more than just the fashion industry that drew me to the city. Once I had visited for the first time, just the energy, the architecture, access to art, theater, music, like it's just
Such a hub.
such a hub for all of those things that Montana has, but obviously you can't, like, on a completely different level. But yeah, that is the reason why we both bit the bullet and tried New York on for size.
So now basically you've heard about what drew us in. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, maybe it's a different gag that draws you to New York.
Or maybe you're not drawn to New York and you're just curious.
Yeah, maybe you hate New York actually. maybe you're anti-NY, but don't know why you're here. That's not a choice. So next we wanted to talk about the pros and cons that we view and see and experience, our perspective, pros and cons wise, on Montana and New York. We're keeping this light.
Also, like, our personal experiences. This isn't necessarily a guide to living in either place.
No
it's just
way.
very much our thoughts, because we do get quite a few questions asking about, like, if we prefer a certain place, where we see ourselves ending up. It's cool to normalize loving two different places and having two different places being so special to you, and that bring out two different sides of you. So,
absolutely. Where we grew up in Missoula, Montana, you can't leave the GD house without running into somebody that you know. Truly. Like, you can be going to the grocery store, the pharmacy, the other grocery store, and Barnes & Noble. You will always be seeing people that, like, you went to middle school with, high school with, college that once you met, like, in passing at the fucking cafeteria on college campus called the Food Zoo. You know, you truly, like, can't throw a stone.
This is a con for you.
Yeah, this is a con. You can't throw a stone without hitting somebody that, like, even once you had a romantic fling with, like, it's a little bit, like, much, you know? Like, don't get me wrong, it's stars hollow charming sometimes.
If it's someone that you want to see, yes.
But also, like, the pressure, though, of, like, feeling, okay, I'm gonna leave the house. How would I feel if I ran into an ex-lover?
It is stressful, I will say. On our trip back, that's something I noticed as well.
Maybe that'll leave with age. Maybe as I get older, I'll give less of an actual
caring.
shit. I will say, there was one day where I was dumped, and I went to the grocery store to get ice cream, and I ran into another man who had ghosted me with his new thing, and she was, like, the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I was an absolute, like, wreck. And then I think I ran into another person who I knew who was the cashier at that same grocery store, and I was, like, running away from this man in a trench coat. That sounds a little bit more menacing than it was, but I also had, like, red eyes from crying, had my Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah, not your best look.
And I was just like, this is a little much for already an emotionally heightened situation.
Yeah, whereas in New York, it feels freeing. I find it comforting.
Yeah, you're truly a speck of dust.
For me, a big pro of living in New York is the architecture and the vibes that come with that architecture. I did not know that living in a place with such historic and stunning architecture would make me feel so good and so stimulated at all times, especially coming from Montana, where it's more about the natural beauty, and obviously it's a newer state as far as history goes, so there's just not as much of that, like, glorious lion stonework.
Yeah, there are less lions in Montana built into literal rock, so
for
do
me,
it that way you will.
As much as I love nature, I'm more of an architecture person, and that's something that, like, I really admire.
One day we'll do a whole video on living on the Upper West Side and our favorite things about it, but man, the Upper West Side is stunning in terms of, like, old architecture. So the houses,
even just going on a meander, weaving through the different avenues,
like, we'll go on a run and
a delight.
I can't breathe. A pro for me, which is funny, just conversely, I think I'm using that word correctly, who knows, it's been a while since I was in La Escuela. One of my pros for living in Montana is the nature. I absolutely am a big nature gal at heart. In fact, when I was very young, like 10 years old, we would visit Santiago, the capital of Chile, and I would tell my mother that the city made me sick. Like, I was very dramatic. I love to be in the trees. I love organic energy, and I have so much respect for the earth and just the wonders that she encompasses. And I will say there have been times in my life where when it all gets really overwhelming, you can just literally in Montana just drive to the actual woods, and it'll take you like 5 minutes, and you're suddenly just, like, in the wilderness. And that's another way of feeling, like, very small, which I always think is very humbling, to feel like how small you are. And you have that in New York by, like, being around a ton of people, but, like, in Montana it's nice to get that sense of solitude and clarity. And although like we are so lucky and we live close to both parks on the Upper West Side, they are still not like wild spaces. Obviously, they are city parks. And I'm very interested in pursuing like some sort of hiking opportunities upstate and just like seeing what the rest of New York State has to offer. But Montana, it's crazy. Like truly, it's just like a hop, skip, and a jump away from your front door, and you can be in the mountains, which I do really, really love. And I think it has set a precedent for like later in life, when I'm like, it's like late 30s, early 40s, I think I would want to live somewhere that had more access to natural spaces and wild spaces. Maybe I want to tap a tree one day, you know, who knows? But either way, she's beautiful.
I will say that the cottagecore vibes and lifestyle of Montana is just truly elite. When we were there for most of last year, it was just such a cozy, Stars Hollow-esque time. We're truly big fans.
Yeah, and you can't compare.
You can't beat it. A big pro for me for Montana is, one, the lack of humidity is truly divine, and also, I know a lot of Montanans would disagree, but pretty much every season has something so beautiful about it. Like the fall time is truly magical. You're just engulfed by orange leaves.
Also,
and
the fall in Montana is long.
It's long. It's a good, and it starts early. Besides the wildfire season, which is alarming,
especially with climate
with
change.
The climate crisis aggravating it, it is the worst thing to happen, because growing up, Montana summers were so perfect. Like the temperature is idyllic.
Yeah. And because it's not humid,
yeah,
it also doesn't feel as hot, which I know some people have an aversion to the
dry.
But also like, it's not fucking the desert.
Yeah.
Like, calm down.
No,
there's just a lot of dry grass.
Montana summer's so beautiful. The winter, snowy and magical.
Now it's getting a little sloppy with the climate crisis. That's neither here nor there. There's a video for another day.
But yeah, overall, New York summers and winters are rather rough and sometimes hard to get through by being out in the elements. Whereas in Montana, you get into your cozy car in the winter and you just zip around town, and it's just, you don't have to deal with the elements unless you're like a true outdoorsman who's like ice climbing.
Which I don't know if you can tell, but we are not true outdoorsmen.
We're not ice climbing in the winter.
Yeah.
Whereas in New York in the wintertime, having to do the in and out of subway dance with your layers and you're sweating, and then you're in the cold outside.
It's hard to get comfortable.
Or in the summer when you're just dripping in sweat at all times. It's just a lot, because
I've been damp for 3 months. A big pro for New York, and who's surprised? Culture, buddy.
Woo!
Man, oh man, not only is New York one of the most diverse cities in the United States and also the world, but it shows. I mean, you have so many different kinds of authentic cuisine to experience. The Thai food here is unparalleled. I don't know what those noodles are doing when they're not inside me, but man, they are delicious.
They're so good.
As well as like walking down the street, you hear like 7 different languages at one time, which is just like,
I love it.
Very cool, and very also like makes you, I think, have a healthier understanding of the world. On top of that, because we're talking culture, there's also like the art and the access to just cool things. This week alone, I am going to an aquarium, which is one of the top 5 aquariums in the US, the continental United States. And then next week, I'm going to the Van Gogh exhibit that was literally featured in Emily in Paris, which we all know is a horrible
show.
Horrible pig swill of a television program.
But boy, does that exhibit look fun.
Piqued my interest.
And if you're a New York resident, a lot of times you can do pay as you wish, and you can just get into libraries, you can get into museums, historical societies. I don't know what the difference is between that and a museum, but
they're there.
You get
New York, you can find out.
You can get into botanical gardens, you can the galleries that you can take a gander
And
at.
spring they throw flower shows, and the city plants like 800,000 tulips.
So
I
many
will fact
tulips.
check that on the screen, how many tulips the city plants in the spring. The other day I went to a drag show in Brooklyn that was an homage to a Lady Gaga album. But there are some nights in New York when you're like out and about and you just saw like a really good thing. Truly, that's it.
Just
and
a good thing.
You feel like forever changed, and that you're living in a fucking A24 coming of age movie that would have a pop-in soundtrack and a beautiful grain quality to the film.
Oh, 100%.
And it just feels like magic. And I love that.
It's amazing.
And don't get me wrong, there's some wild Montana nights there where you throw on a campfire and you can feel that way too. But I will say, maybe because I have lived so much of my life in Montana, experiencing something so different.
There is such a high level of respect and admiration and appreciation for the arts as a whole in New York that I am obsessed with. Because like every other person is like, oh, my friend is a comedian, or my friend's an actor, my friend's a dancer, an artist. It's just a completely different world as far as the arts and cultural access goes.
Yeah, for sure. Whereas like Montana, like obviously there's art there, but it's just more of an outlier than an industry. Support local artists wherever you are, because they are also doing very important work.
Big fans,
yes.
Big fans. Lastly, my final pro/con,
and I'm obviously included.
Yeah, we agree on this. Is just as far as politics go, there's just some really heartbreaking legislation going on in Montana that is really disheartening. As folks belonging to the LGBTQIA+ community, we do not vibe with. So a huge pro for us is just the liberal politics of New York. We have to say it.
Yeah, we have to say it.
We have to talk about
pandemic,
this.
Living in a place that is so proactive to protecting its people and having it not feel like pulling teeth. Like I work at a restaurant and I've worked at, a bakery in Montana, and I will say like working in Montana like during the pandemic and in a customer service job was really difficult and low-key traumatizing because people just got mean about like masks and the way that they treat you was not very neighborly.
And it's also wonderful as queer people to have such a strong foundation of queer culture and queer community in the city. I know that I was terrified to come out until moving to New York because it's just such an accepting and open-minded place. Definitely such a huge pro for us when looking for a place to live is, are we going to feel safe, and are our friends going to feel safe, are our partners going to feel safe? And sometimes, unfortunately, Montana still has some work to do, as much as there is an amazing amount of people advocating for change, which is amazing and incredibly valuable work. So
no, absolutely. Kudos to any small town folks who are doing political advocacy right now. You are doing the most, and all of us, I think, thank you for that. Every time we bring up politics, there's somebody in the comments being like, I'm unfollowing, I was enjoying your channel and content up until this point. The thing is, you guys, you don't have to tell us, you can just go. Our last prompt of the day is, where does our relationship stand with both places presently? And I don't know if you can tell, but we are very much content with our choice to return to New York City.
Best decision we've ever made.
When I was back in Montana for the pandemic, I will say she was the most wonderful place to recollect and to reflect on myself and to have a more quiet life while I healed from some stuff that I didn't know that I wasn't healed from.
Yeah.
And
she was a lovely host.
Yeah, truly. Like, no better place to bake some bread and read quietly. Like, are you kidding me? As far as like where I want to spend the rest of my 20s, definitely New York City. I think that it has really helped me feel like I can start over and have a clean slate on who I am now, and I think that's been really amazing. So I love New York, and maybe not forever, but certainly for like a long time, which is pretty cool because I really thought, by the end of 2019, I was like, I don't know if this is for me.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's such a hard place to live sometimes, and it's not easy,
and it's expensive.
It ain't for the faint of heart, and we most certainly have had faint of heart days and periods of our lives where we haven't been sure about where we want to end up, and this will always evolve and change. However, I think our move back this year, January 2021, was such a different experience. As much as it was rocky in the beginning, we are so happy we made that decision. We originally were thinking maybe we'd only come back for a year or two, especially I know Aline was not really vibing with the city as much, so we had no idea. And now I think we're both just over the moon with our decision to move to New York.
Yeah,
I love it so much. I am so proud of the life that we've created living here, and I'm so excited to see how we evolve and grow and change as people. It feels great despite both of the reasons we came kind of shifting. Like our careers have changed, our aspirations have changed, we have changed, but yet our love for the city, I feel like, has grown stronger.
It is crazy because I think that starting over, although romanticized, like dropping everything and going to a new place, starting from scratch, blah blah blah, I expected it to feel like this like right away, and it's just something that like took some time.
Yes.
And I think had I not had you, I might have just given up and been like, it's not for me. I think I tried it and it's not for me and blah, 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 blah. But because I had you as a support system, which I just feel so lucky to have, like, absolutely, like, the city has shocked me in so many ways. Like, the first year was truly like being waterboarded by Mistress Manhattan, but this second season is phenomenal. I feel like, just bouncing back like a basketball. You know, like it's kind of crazy. And they say that, like they say, like your first year in New York is gonna be the worst one. And then everything from there is like going uphill. I feel like I've learned so much, been challenged so much. I feel like I'm a better, stronger person than I was, because
100%.
Although I just like love Montana through and through, I was incredibly comfortable. And this has been an experience that has really made me grow, sometimes painfully. But where I'm at now, I'm like sitting pretty. I feel like really good and proud of myself.
Yeah.
So
especially since we both lived at home all through college, we were essentially just like in our comfortable baby bird nest for very many years, and more years than many. And it was just such a wonderful like push out of the nest and like just learn to fly experience. And I feel like I've grown so much as a person, and it's just really heckin' cool to feel like you're just evolving and growing and facing things you didn't think that you had to face, and going through such amazing, sometimes terrifying experiences that are gonna shape you into the person that you're gonna be. And I love that for both of us. If you do want to hear more about the actual moving process to New York and tips for moving to New York, we could make that a whole other video, because this was very much centered around Montana versus New York and our thoughts on that. But we would love to make more like moving content and advice
and
videos
for just like, you know, not a guide, but some tips now and then, tips and tricks, buddy. Keeping it light, keeping it fun.
Tricks are for kids.
Thanks for tuning in. If you watch this whole thing, you are a trooper. My Instagram and Michelle's Instagram are here up on the screen, and you can follow us there for more content.
Please do follow us. Also, let us know down below for these coffee chat videos, what do you want to see us cover next?
Yeah, these first few topics we chose just ourselves because we hadn't been on YouTube for a while.
Yeah, just pulled them out of a hat.
But let us know. We want to hear from you. We want to be engaging with you. We care about what you guys and what you think. So thanks so much, and we will catch you in the next video.
Bye.